best Pyramids View hotel, and I'm about to show you exactly why it is the best view of the pyramids. There's an old saying that if you drink water from the Nile, you'll be back here, and I'm back here now for my second time, and it's absolutely incredible. I mean, we're having breakfast at our hotel, and where else in the world do you get a view like this?
In this 4-part series, we explore a land filled with wonder, mystery, and beauty. From temples to pharaohs and queens and tombs filled with gold. This is the burial chamber of the tomb of Seti I. Come with me as we trace through the history spanning over 7,000 years of ancient Egypt.
La puissance de ton Dieu est assez grande.
Has resurrected Osiris.
With special access to tombs, monuments, and artifacts that many people have never seen or heard of before.
This is a very special tomb, so come look. What has happened here is the battle. And I have a little offering for Queen Nefertari.
Nefertari of Egypt speaks thus.
From the monuments of Ramses II. Ramses on his chariot with his horse shooting his bow and arrow, to the golden treasures of Tutankhamen. Incredible to be seeing this so up close. And the lesser known stories of this country.
Nefertiti and Akhenaten, the real Cleopatra. I believe that I am inside this tomb.
Egypt came to an end. Come discover the history of Egypt through the ages.
From the balcony here, we can see the entire Giza Plateau. Just excuse the chickens. Okay, you can see the entire Giza Plateau. You can see the pyramid for Khufu, his queens, the Khufu ship. Here's the Sphinx, the Valley Temple, the tombs of the pyramid builders. Then behind me here, we've got Khafra's pyramid, and then the pyramid for Menkura and his queen's pyramid. This is like so interesting to me. You can see like everyone's livestock is down here. They've got ducks, they've got goats, everything. There are a lot of car crashes in Cairo.
Sure.
Yeah. Because I see like the traffic is crazy. But I see on everybody's car, on the sides, there's a scratch.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Everybody. Yeah.
And they call that the Cairo kiss, am I right?
Yes.
Our first visit is to the world's first ever pyramid and the world's first ever stone structure at Saqqara, dating back to 2600 BC. This is the Imhotep Museum, which is named after the architect of the step pyramid for Pharaoh Zoser. And as you walk in here, it's so amazing, greeted by, it's not much to look at. It's a little statue of Zoser, no, of Imhotep I mean. And if you look here, he's not here, but all we have is his feet. And at the bottom here, you can see the remnants of his name, Imhotep. Imhotep was a physician, an architect, and an advisor to Pharaoh Zoser. And in the Third Dynasty, when Pharaoh Zoser decided he wanted to change from the traditional Mastabas tombs to have something a bit grander, Him and Imhotep came up with the first ever step pyramid, which was also the first ever stone structure in the world. And Imhotep really was an amazing man. He invented so many of healing methods that we still use today. This man was still celebrated up until the Ptolemaic times for being the inventor of architecture. It's quite unfortunate that we only have a few statues and a few images of Imhotep remaining. We don't even know where his tomb is, but Imhotep actually is one of the most important people in Egyptian history, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have these pyramids and things that we see today. This is from inside Zoser's step pyramid, am I correct?
Exactly. Yes. This is actually from the mortuary, or the burial room, of Zoser.
With these amazing glass tiles.
Tiles are arranged to look like hanging mats.
Yes.
Hanging mats on the wall.
Because the old tombs were actually meant to be designed like the house of the dead. That's where their spirit would live. When you look at this wooden scaffolding of how they're restoring the pyramid, it really lets you think about how it was when they were building this amazing structure. The first tombs were known as mastabas and were usually built as rectangular structures above the ground.
The first mastaba, it had like a certain dimension.
It was
Then they
rectangular, it was
expanded-
not square. Yeah.
Then they expanded it from two sides to be like square.
Yes.
Okay. So over here, you see?
First, second.
Yes.
Yeah. And the outer casing where it's fallen away,
Yeah.
which was stolen as well. Yeah.
Stolen or taken to be used in other
Other
buildings.
things,
Yeah. Still kind of robbery as well.
Still robbery.
Yeah.
The Hatshepsut festival was almost like a jubilee celebration for when the pharaoh had his 30th anniversary of being on the throne. Best preserved areas where we know that a pharaoh celebrated his jubilee was at Saqqara, at the step pyramid of Zoser. In the enclosure wall was where Zoser would celebrate his Hatshepsut festival. It consisted of many different things that happened where, like the pharaoh had to chase a bull and had to run around the track so many times in the north and the south, showing that he's unified Egypt. And the Hatshepsut festival, it was a very important part, and not all pharaohs got to do it, so it was very prestigious if you got to do it. This is the back section of the festival area for
Yeah.
Zoser.
Of the Hatshepsut court,
Hatshepsut court.
And it's very interesting to check, if from here,
Yes.
to check the Roman statues of King Zoser.
So this is King Zoser.
Yeah, and the most interesting point, not the perfection we are seeing of these statues, actually
Symbolic.
the symbolic, yeah. Here you are seeing a certain, royal pose.
Yes.
Yeah, the two hands holding like a scepter in front of him over here. And the same.
Ptah, it's both hands like that, like Ptah.
Ptah. So you can imagine that maybe it was a statue of Ptah or Zoser
as Ptah.
Yes, exactly. So it worked for both.
Ptah, the god of the shadows and of medicine and...
For craftsmen.
Yes.
And he was the main local god of Menf. The ancient Egyptians assigned a god for each province of Egypt. So the main god
of this area is Ptah.
Was Ptah. They are like dummy buildings. They
There's
are
nothing
not
inside.
real.
It's
They are
just for
nothing
show.
inside. Just for show. We're
not exactly sure where Egypt came from. I mean, they didn't just spring out the ground, but we can trace it as far back as almost 7,000 years ago, where we have a tribe in the Libyan desert and along the Mediterranean. And as the weather started to change and the climate started to change, what we have now as desert started to dry up where they were living, and they moved forward and forward and forward until they reached the Nile, where they settled. From the two Naqada tribes, which settled in the north and the south of Egypt, we had two major cities that were formed, known firstly as Nekhen in the south and Inu in the north, Heracleopolis and Heliopolis. And in Heracleopolis we have which is known as the first ever pharaoh, Pharaoh Nama, and Nama actually unified Egypt. He got his soldiers together and they went to the north and they had a battle, and this was recorded on the Nama palette, and he's the first pharaoh to rule Egypt as a unified Egypt. Try and have a look at the mastabas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's just something everywhere here at Saqqara. I mean, you walk down here, and this is so beautiful. It's an entrance to a tomb, and you can see the door, all the hieroglyphics, the husband and his wife. You can still see the color on here. You can see it was red. Look, you can see the eyes with the eye makeup. The Egyptians built false doors, which were designed to look like doors, but for actually your spirit to pass between the afterlife and this life, because they believed your spirit could come in and out. And Unas's wife had a very nice false door, and actually with the false doors, a lot of the time women would write down little letters, and they would, if they were angry with their husbands or if they wanted help with something, they'd write on the letter and they'd leave it at the false door, believing that the spirit would come and read the letter.
In early dynasties, they would include in the tomb many figurines of deities, but apart from that, also figurines of workers who would do that specific job for you in the afterlife, including objects that you would use in your everyday life, such as your headrest.
The servant would come and comb the hair all the way.
Just like the hairdressers,
And you can lie back and you get your makeup done.
Exactly.
And for the men, they can lie back and get shave.
In higher ranking tombs, they would include life-size statues of the dead for their spirit to recognize themselves once they have passed on into the afterlife.
This is King Unas's causeway, and it leads to his pyramid, which is the first pyramid with text inside, and all of the mastabas for his children. In the Fifth Dynasty, when Pharaoh Unas was ruling Egypt, there was a famine, and this was recorded in his causeway. And actually, the famine didn't last too long because Unas came along and he built canals, and he started with irrigation and building up farming systems. And this is actually recorded inside the son of Unas in his mastaba for Unas Ankh. And inside Unas's daughter's tomb, we actually have images showing how prosperous Egypt was. We have vast amounts of cattle, fishing in the Nile, and Unas really turned Egypt around at that stage and brought the country to what would continue as a very prosperous country.
Like a special time of the year. So she's enjoying her time in such special.
And it's showing that it's so prosperous. I mean, they're capturing all of these fish and crocodiles, and look at all of these cows. This is beyond beautiful. The green, because that's very special.
Exactly, because you're not used to see the radish color, the yellow color. The green color, it's unique to find that color.
And look at this jackal. I mean, that is a clear sign of Anubis. And he's climbing on the lotus and capturing the geese. And look at all of these hunters here on the boats.
The more you focus, the more details you find like a butterfly.
What did the butterfly represent? Is that the time of the year?
It's spring, yes.
Yes.
And
Which today is still.
Yeah.
In the Nile, we can see here the hippos and the crocodiles with the boat above. And inside the boat is Princess Idut in full size with her lady-in-waiting by her knee, showing Idut's status in Egypt. This is a very special tomb, so come look.
It's such full color.
Yes.
And all these statues of
Representing him, represented him,
Different
in different
stages.
stages of his life.
And
It sounds.
he's the butcher to the pharaoh.
Yes. And he's the head of the butchers, not just a butcher.
Irukata was the head butcher in the Sixth Dynasty, and actually what's very interesting, he was buried, as the Egyptians did this quite a lot, they buried them with things that they believed they need in the afterlife, and as Irukata was the butcher, he was buried with hordes of raw meat. And the strange thing is, when you go into his tomb, even to today, the raw meat smell is still there, and it's crazy to think that something like 4,000 years ago, we have the smell of raw meat and we can still smell how that tomb smelled like.
He was buried with meat. Wow. And look at his ceiling. Even his ceiling is still painted. Don't be fooled by the beauty of this tomb. It is rumored to be highly haunted, so treat it with the utmost respect if allowed to enter. You can see here at this stage in his life he decided to grow a little moustache, so he's got a little moustache here.
So I can read a little hieroglyphics, and I want to read the cartouche over there. I want to see if I'm getting it right.
Can you?
I can.
I can't believe it. Okay.
Okay. So we've got Ka,
Yes, exactly.
Nefer,
Yeah.
Nefera.
Yeah, perfect. Yes.
Is it
It's how
good?
you read it. It's not just good, it's perfect,
And it's the beautiful spirit of Ra.
Yes.
Pharaoh Pepi is actually quite an interesting character in the Sixth Dynasty, and he had a huge dislike for flies, actually almost a phobia, and he got one of his courtiers, and he had this man covered in honey every day to attract the flies, to keep the flies away from Pepi. And Pepi actually ruled for a very long time, so I feel quite sorry for whoever had to be covered in honey for almost like something 60 years or something like that. And his mummy is actually on display in the Imhotep Museum at Saqqara.
Many of the farming techniques used today are the same as used by the ancient Egyptians, and going around Saqqara you get an idea of how historical this place actually is.
King Snefru actually built himself 3 pyramids because after Zoser and everything, they were trying to perfect the pyramid style from going away from a step pyramid to a smooth pyramid. However, he was not very successful. If we see here in these photos, this is one that he built. They actually built it almost like a step pyramid, and they realized that it was crumbling in. So this one of Snefru he abandoned. Then Snefru built this one, which is called the bent pyramid, and it has these bent sides because they were building it at too much of a steep angle and all the rocks were falling off, and they had to change the angle of the building. Actually, Snefru, when he saw the bent pyramid, he was not happy again, and he abandoned this pyramid at Dashur. After that one, they perfected it, and they built this pyramid, which is known as the Red Pyramid. Snefru had a son, and his son succeeded him on the throne, and he is known as Pharaoh Khufu, and he's the builder of the Great Pyramid, the biggest pyramid that was ever built. And it's very ironic because we don't know a lot about Khufu because there's not much written about him, but we have a very interesting statue which is only a few centimeters tall of Khufu, made out of ivory, and this was actually found at the base of the pyramid inside his mother's tomb. And we actually know more about Khufu's mother than we actually know about Khufu, the builder of the biggest monument in Egypt.
This is an amazing view of the pyramids. You can see all 3 of these huge ancient monuments, and to be here, you know what, you cannot describe what it feels like.
Pyramids were actually used as tombs for the pharaoh,
and also for, the pharaoh's wives, the queens. It is a big myth that the pyramids were built by slaves. We have proof, we have tombs for the slaves. Well, they weren't slaves, they were workers, because if they were slaves, they were not given a tomb. They were looked after, they were paid, they got paid in food and beer and wine, and they had houses given to them where they could live with their families. So this whole thing that, the pharaohs were slave drivers and forced everyone to work, that's not true. During a certain part of the year, men would be called aside and they would go and work on the pharaoh's project, whether that was to build a temple or a pyramid. And they were workers, they got paid and they enjoyed what they did. You're going to go inside?
Yeah.
I have a phobia of going inside the pyramid.
You haven't been? It's too bad because it's unbelievable.
I'm so scared to go inside. I have a feeling that it's going to fall in on me, or I'm going to be cursed or something.
But you were passing up there.
Oh yeah, I'll go to the entrance. I won't go in. My friend, Sharon Hay, and Sharon has actually just completed her studies as an Egyptologist. So Sharon, tell me, what is it about Egypt that captured you?
I think it started when I was young, when I was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
And my parents brought me here. My father was wearing a three-piece suit, and my mother was wearing a black dress with pearls and heels, and they climbed up there. And later on, they basically took me to Egypt when I was about 9, and my father would pretend to be Akhenaten, and my mother Nefertiti. They would dance.
Yeah.
And they basically just brought me lots of books on ancient Egypt. And I am a lawyer, as you know.
Yes.
But I've never forgotten my love of Egypt, and I've always continued to be fascinated by it. I think it's a place that you can be fascinated by, your entire life.
Yes. What is your hope for modern Egypt?
My hope is that they will conserve the monuments. I think that's very important to discover the monuments, but I think it's very important to conserve sites such as these because they are the only ones.
Yeah,
And,
it will never be again.
It will never be again, and it's very important for people to learn about these monuments in order to value them.
I know you want to go inside the pyramids, so I better let you go.
Absolutely.
I'm too scared to go inside, I'm not going to go, but anyway, thank
You have
you.
to come sometime.
I will.
Thank you.
We'll go together.
In the distance from the Great Pyramid, you can see a new structure being built, which is known as the Grand Egyptian Museum. It is set to open very soon and will surely be Egypt's greatest museum ever.
At the Sphinx Valley Temple, which is just in front of the paws of the Sphinx, the Great Sphinx, we had these statues, which are beautiful, of Pharaoh Khafra, and they are made out of granite. And at the back of Khafra's head, we have Horus holding Khafra's head, supporting him. And these statues are so amazing to look at. And just to think that there were 12 of these statues originally inside the Valley Temple.
However, in this turbulent Fourth Dynasty family, before Khafra and his successor Menkura, came another son of Khufu, known as Djedefre.
Djedefre felt a little pushed out by the family, and he wanted to try and build a bigger pyramid than his father Khufu, and he moved his pyramid just a little to the side above on a hill, because he believed if he was on a hill, his pyramid would actually be taller. His pyramid was not actually even near the size of Khufu's pyramid. One theory is that Djedefre is the one whose face is on the Sphinx. Personally, I like to believe that the face on the Sphinx is of Khafra, because it resembles him the most, and it's almost exactly in line with Khafra's pyramid. But we do know that Djedefre tried to feel closer to his father, and he actually buried 2 ships at the base of Khufu's pyramid, which we still have intact. And Djedefre was almost like the outcast, but he tried to really connect back with his family.
The Sphinx is so beautiful at sunset, you can literally see almost all the other colors that it had because it was originally painted. The Sphinx's nose was not broken by Napoleon. In fact, it was broken by an Arabian army general long before Napoleon visited Egypt.
The back of the Sphinx, you can see everywhere where the Romans came in and they tried to repair the Sphinx because this is carved out of the solid rock here, so it's had a lot of damage, and you've got to try and repair these things, obviously, to preserve it.
And you can see all of the layers here, and it goes back up until we get to the back of the head where we see the pharaoh wearing the Nemes headdress. The back has fallen off, but you can still see the lock on the back of the Sphinx's neck where it was held on, where it was holding on to the back of the headdress. And all the details are still here of the pleats in the headdress. With the golden sunset right now, it's just incredible to look at. No one is quite sure of the function of the Sphinx. However, sphinxes were seen as the protector of sacred places, and as this is a sacred burial place, it would make sense to have a sphinx there. Sphinxes are also used as the symbol for Akhet, which is horizon, as in the pharaoh rising above as the sun. Here we have the death mask for Pharaoh Hor-Awibra. It was found in his tomb at Dashur, and this is the death mask of the pharaoh with the Ka statue. We're going to show you the Ka statue a little bit later. The color of this statue symbolizes the god Osiris and rebirth. But to tell us more about Montuhotep, I have roped in my friend and Egyptologist from New Zealand, Sharon Hay, to tell us a little bit more info about the 11th dynasty and its intermediate period, and to tell us more about the temple next to Hatshepsut.
Hatshepsut is like that, and then his is just this tiny temple to the left of hers. Montuhotep is in the corner. He's the one who starts the building at Diabari. Often debated, they think that it's a pyramid in the center of the temple. But there's no pyramid left, but you can see the structure in the middle of the temple. I think one of the most significant finds at the temple, or the surrounding temple, is the burial of 60 young men who appear to have been warriors. They were killed in battle, and parts of them were discovered. They are actually high up in another tomb, which you can see, but you would need special permission for. There isn't anything in there except bones and wrapping. I think you would need to be a Joanne Fletcher to get permission. Montuhotep's temple was a wonderful piece of art. The art hadn't actually reached its zenith. It did later on. But in any case, Montuhotep united Egypt, both Upper and Lower Egypt. I think the most significant sculpture associated with him is that very large Ka statue, which was discovered by Howard Carter, the discoverer of Tutankhamun's tomb. And you can still see this sculpture in the Cairo Museum. It's black, and all the limbs and the body are black, and the king is covered in white, and he's wearing a red crown. It's very striking. Some people think it's chunky, some people think it's clumsy. It hasn't, just because it's not refined like a lot of the art in the Middle Kingdom. But I think it's very striking when you see it. It's possible that Montuhotep did not have any heirs, which is why Ammonium Hat was the designated successor. He hijacks the literature, so to speak, by bringing in something called the prophecy of Nefertiti. And in this piece of literature, a man called Ameni, who is a commoner, has been prophesied to be Pharaoh. In any case, he starts to be a very good king, and he establishes a dynasty which is considered to be the high point of the Middle Kingdom. So the literature starts off with something like the prophecy of Nefertiti. You have the Tale of Sinewy. You also have instructions of Ammonium Hat, which is an interesting piece of work because it points to his assassination. So there's a great deal of manipulation by the pharaohs in the literature as much as anything else.
Elephantine Temple is on an island in the middle of the Nile, and at the moment it is closed to the public and it is being restored, and you can see where the original stones are and where they filled them in, and as you go along they've very kindly extended the old drawings with new drawings to show you what it used to look like. So this temple should be opened very soon to show to everyone, but it's actually quite amazing how they are able to restore it for people to view.
Senusert III, or Sesostris III, was the pharaoh in the 12th dynasty, and he's very famous for his statues. He looks very displeased, but he was actually an amazing pharaoh, and he led wars into Nubia to go and conquer this African country below Egypt.
This chapel is built by Sesostris III. It's the feet of Sesostris III. The top of this is actually inside the British Museum now.
He went into Nubia and he wanted to get the gold. And because of Sesostris's efforts with the Nubians, they actually became allies, and Nubia then became a very strong part of the Egyptian culture.
We're going to go into the basement to have a look underneath the temple. It's quite impressive, so let's go. There's a lot of bats, so let's make it fast.
This tomb dates back to the Fourth Dynasty, and it is actually extremely rare to find a tomb, yet alone a tomb for a priest, underneath a temple. The son of Sesostris III was Ammonium Hat III. Ammonium Hat actually built this pyramid originally. It doesn't even look like a pyramid anymore. Actually, it just looks like a mud mountain because this was built out of mud brick. And yeah, it doesn't look that great. So he abandoned this one and moved all the way to Hawara near Fayum and built this pyramid also out of mud brick and limestone. And this is actually where Amenemhat Hat decided to use as his tomb. He built canals and also expanded Egypt's agricultural status and even explored the land of Punt, which is now known as Ethiopia.
When you dismantle the name Ammonium Hat, as I explained before, their names related with their gods.
Yes.
Tahutmas, Wissermac Ra, Tutankhamen.
After Amenemhat IV came a female pharaoh, and this woman was known as Sobek Neferu, which meant the beautiful one of Sobek, the crocodile god. And actually Sobek Neferu was the sister of Amenemhat IV, as Amenemhat IV did not actually have any children. But Egypt at this stage was still not very accepting of a first female pharaoh, and unfortunately Sobek Neferu only ruled for 3 years, and after she died she was buried in her father's pyramid for Amenemhat III, and actually a few of the other family members were buried in this same pyramid. This is Sobek Neferu, the first ever recorded female pharaoh, but unfortunately all of her statues have been defaced. As we know, defacing a statue took your name out of history and almost refused you the pass to get into the afterlife.
They were not happy that a woman was pharaoh. Same with Hatshepsut, and they tried to destroy her image out of history. This one, even worse. Not even the nose. The cobra, the symbol of the pharaohs, was taken away, and almost her entire face was taken away. But this woman really led the path for a series of female pharaohs which would come to follow in her footsteps years and years later. Along came the 13th dynasty. Horowibra actually ruled Egypt for 2 years, 7 months and 7 days. It's actually quite specific, but he didn't have enough time, obviously, in this 2 years, 7 months and 7 days to build his own pyramid. That's why he was busy restoring the pyramid of Ammonium Hat III. Actually, in the 13th dynasty, building pyramids was still quite common practice.
They had 3 forms for your spirit: the Ka, the Ba, and the Ah. The Ka was your bodily spirit. The Ba was what your spirit became to travel to the afterlife. And the Ah was your spirit once you had reached heaven.
Really represented in his Ka statue.
The Ka is the spirit with the hands on the head. It's made of wood. And this is a unique statue because there is no other statue of a king with the Ka. And it's beautiful. His eyes are blue. And he's got the Osiris beard, which means he's passed on to the afterlife. And people walk past this statue all the time, and they never pay attention to it. But this is so important, this statue.
Like a wooden statue, found in such perfection.
With just a few cracks. And he still has some gold on his necklace. It's beautiful. If someone broke into his tomb, his eyes would reflect the sunlight and he would come alive. That's the curse, yeah.
And he actually restored this pyramid of Amenemhat Hat at Dashur, using only a section for himself because it was a very short reign. And this is actually what his tomb looked like. This is a drawing of how they found his tomb. They would have come through here. Here would have been his statue, the Ka statue, along with a few chairs and some funerary objects, moving along to his stone sarcophagus with his wooden sarcophagus on the inside. At the end here are his canopic jars in this shaft tomb inside a pyramid. And actually underneath the wooden sarcophagus we had his body with his death mask. This is the death mask for Horowibra, which they found. It's made out of wood, glass and brass actually. So these are just a few objects that they found in his tomb, like his veil, the necklaces. This would have been his pectoral necklace that he wore with Horus on either side, which tied at the back.
Let us jump forward to the 18th dynasty.
In 1500 BC, Egypt yet again was faced with another problem. The Pharaoh Thutmosis II had died, and his son Thutmosis III was far too young to rule Egypt. However, his stepmother Hatshepsut stepped in and basically took the role as Pharaoh. Hatshepsut explored quite a lot during her time. She brought back plants and food and spices and perfumes from all over, including Ethiopia, Punt, and she sent her stepson, Thutmosis III, out to defend the country when he was older. So she ruled the country and he defended it.
Hatshepsut, she's one of 7 ladies had succeeded
She was a pharaoh.
to rule Egypt, but she dressed as a king, as a man, as a pharaoh.
She was a very strong woman.
No doubt, no doubt. But where we are right now, we can easily say love is supreme because this unique construction had been made by love.
A man who was in love with her built it for her.
That's right.
It has been rumored that Hatshepsut had a male consort. Senenmut
is speculated to be the father of Hatshepsut's daughter, Neferu, but we don't have this actually confirmed. But there are quite a few statues of Senenmut with Neferu on his lap, and this is very symbolic to actually show that he might be the father. However, Hatshepsut died and Thutmose III took the throne as the rightful ruler of Egypt. He took away Hatshepsut's name. The big obelisk that Hatshepsut built, Hatshepsut being the first person to build the obelisks, he took her name off it, he took her name off temples, and just wanted to try and take her out of history because he believed she was not the rightful pharaoh. He believed he was the rightful pharaoh and that she should have just been not so involved, but you know, he was too young, so she was actually doing a good thing.
This granite sphinx of the queen and pharaoh Hatshepsut is quite beautiful yet imposing at the same time. Here we see Hatshepsut wearing the Nemes headdress and the same regalia representing herself as a king. People were not pleased that a woman was pharaoh, and this was to be devastating for Hatshepsut's name in history.
North of Luxor by 40 kilometers.
Okay, so you
From
came
village,
far.
from there, yes, far. They come specially to the from the village of Luxor.
Nice to meet you guys. It's great to see people from Egypt having an interest in the monuments. It's very nice to see that.
Yeah, بيقول لك انت ده حاجة كويسة انك تيجي وتشوفي الآثار بتاعت البلد وكده يعني. They come from far distance.
They come from far to see
Yes.
it in their own country.
Yes.
That's really great.
Okay.
There's actually so much to see around the
Yes.
back here. And then from here you get an amazing view of the obelisk.
It's here that Hatshepsut built the biggest of all her obelisks.
Yes.
They built a wall around Hatshepsut's
Obelisk,
obelisk
to
with
hide
just
it.
the tip sticking out. So only the priests could go in and read the story,
Yes.
but the public who would see it from far could not tell who it was.
But who could remove the name of a pharaoh? Perhaps someone who knew that they were the rightful heir.
How are you, Jordan?
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Behind me now is what would have been the biggest obelisk in Egypt and in fact the entire world, carved from one solid piece of granite here in this quarry in Aswan. But unfortunately, when they were chipping away to dig out this enormous piece of rock, they cracked it. So it was left abandoned, but it's actually a good thing because this lets us see how they actually built these things. We are not even sure who this obelisk was intended for, as it was abandoned and no cartouches, no hieroglyphics were carved on it, but I can't even begin to explain to you how big this structure is. You actually have to be here to see the size of it.
Sharing his name with the ibis-headed god, Thutmose III, the stepson of Queen Hatshepsut, ascended to the throne. Thoth was known as the god of writing, the god of the scribes.
Thutmose III ruled for 54 years. He fought in 17 battles, the Battle of Megiddo being his biggest battle ever. He built around 50 temples and fortresses from Lower Syria down into Nubia. However, most of these are not standing anymore and destroyed because of the newly constructed Lake Nasser, which flooded these mud brick fortresses, and they've been lost to history forever.
Look at the nose.
It's perfect.
Super perfect. No mistakes at all.
You can even see all the lines.
All the line in his beard, The size between this eye and this eye is perfect.
It's good.
Thank you! I like it.
Yeah. You see a lot of the problems here in Egypt. You see the poverty, you see everything. And you know, the press has not been great for Egypt in the last few years, but when you do something like this, you realize none of that actually matters. Everybody, even though they've got so many problems, everyone's happy, and it is a very beautiful country. This view of the pyramids in the back, it makes you think how it must have been 5,000 years ago, looking at these things. You just can't take it in, and the sheer size, it's so beautiful.
As we now leave the Pyramid Age behind, in part 2 we go in search of the ever-mysterious family of the 18th Dynasty.
And the eyes and the eyebrows have been made black.
From the family quarrels of Thutmosis and Hatshepsut,
It's like you can hear a pin drop.
to the eccentric new ways of Akhenaten and his beautiful wife Nefertiti, the treasures and intrigue behind the story of Tutankhamun. Let's go inside into the burial chamber and the legacy of Tutankhamun's grandparents, Amenhotep and Queen T.